Welcome to an exclusive interview on IKTV. I'm of course your host Jerani Richardson, and I have two persons with me. They are from the SVGCSI. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, starting with you, sir.
My name is Fitzroy Glasgow. I'm the president of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Coalition of Service Industries, which is SVGCSI, and I'm joined here by my colleague.
And I am Renee Batiste. I'm the president of the St. Vincent and Grenadines Bar Association, which is a constituent member of the SVGCSI.
Okay, so I'm gonna get the ball rolling. What is SVGCSI? I'm thinking CSI Miami, crime scene investigation. So and I'm positive that the audience wants to know exactly what is SVGCSI.
I'm sure you're not alone. SVG, well, the Coalition of Service Industries were an initiative by CARICOM. Because CARICOM has identified services plays a big part in our gross domestic products, our GDC, between 60 and 70%. So what do we do to strengthen the services sectors across the region? Well, through different consultations with the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations, they came up with the National Coalition of Services that all of the 15 member states should implement at some stage. Not all have done so thus far, but most have. So that was the initial thinking behind the Coalition of Services. That's what gave birth to the St. Vincent and Grenadines Coalition of Service. Also, we have a regional coalition of service that is an umbrella body for all of the coalition of services throughout the member states. So the reason being, again, we have to make sure that our economies are sustainable. Remember, we used to rely more on agriculture, and that has diminished over the time. It's not that we have less agricultural products, it's just that we have more competition throughout the world, right? So how do we, as we compete against services, and services can be delivered from so many different means. The four main ways that you could deliver services or trade in services. The first, you don't have to leave your country. Right? A telephone company can provide service in another country and nobody has left the country to do so. The other is consumption aboard. Here in St. Vincent, we have medical students. Those are persons participating in trade and services. If you were to go aboard as a tourist or as a patient, you know, we have a lot of patients going to Trinidad or to Barbados. They're trading in services because the service is being provided but in another state for your national, right? The other two is the presence of a commercial business or the presence of a professional person. So a bank could set up business in another state, so therefore they're trading in service, or you as a consultant could go to Barbados, Trinidad and perform your services. So those are the four main means of services. So oftentimes we in St. Vincent, we don't have to leave St. Vincent to trade in services. But the other thing is also most important is that as we form and sign off on trade agreement, right, persons need to know where they can go and practice without any obstruction, right? Because lawfully they can do that. But the most important thing is that people can come here also to compete against you. So we have to have a robust economy, robust service sector in order so we don't need so much to import a lot of service, so we can maintain the professionals who are here, protect their jobs in making sure that we form strong associations, help each other out, right? Working numbers instead of working by ourselves to protect our economy.
And just to give a little bit of expansion on it, when people hear CSI, we have to reinforce that it represents the services sector. And having it as SVGCSI means it's like the umbrella body to deal with the domestic services sector, providing technical support, advocacy, and also what we call market intelligence. Well, the CSI in St. Vincent, maybe it would be useful just to give you a little further background into the objectives of having a CSI. Why is it important to have this organization anyway? There are trade agreements, yes, there's the EPA, and we would have heard that ad nauseum. But how do you make these agreements work and benefit the local economy? You have to enhance the competitiveness of your service sector. So you will have to be trained to know how to provide a competitive service. For example, the services that are under the CSI include the hotel and tourism services, which is the allied service, which include the taxi associations. Then there's a bar representing lawyers, the medical association representing doctors and the allied health services. Then there are the cosmetologists, the people that do hairdressing, spa therapists, all of those will fall under the health and wellness sector. And then the electricians, there's an electrician association here. So they will have their association, will be a member. Also the engineers, there used to be a loose formation of that, and they're now being encouraged to have a formal professional body, so that the engineers will be under that particular sector. The accountants and the architects, they're supposed to be fine. They've got their legislation in place already. The pharmacists, which is a very robust pharmaceutical sector here with the development and discipline under that. So you have all these different organized music professionals have been organized as well. So we have to then now sensitize this general public and even each other on the types of services that we provide, and help those that are not yet an organization. For example, they're real estate agents. They're not yet organized into a professional association. And this service coalition is also to help to develop professional licensing, standards, and regulations for the key service sectors. So you would have heard that in Parliament was passed recently an amendment to the St. Vincent Tourism Authority Bill to provide a licensing regime and the development of standards for various key sectors in the tourism industry, such as the dive sector, the accommodation sector, what's going to happen with restaurants, and I think the first set of standards that are rolling out for the taxi drivers in that particular sector. And the reason for that being, under the trade agreements, you would, and he will be able to tell you more about this as well, is that we already have, the Ministry of Trade already have applications from other countries in the region, because we are now in the era of one Caribbean. That CARICOM, the trading market is in, and the OECS Economic Union is now a reality. So persons can move freely, have movement of persons and movement of capital and movement of services. That's now the real thing. So you can have applications that are coming in asking to set up a particular type of service in St. Vincent. There are news dribbled down by a bird saying that persons would like to come in to set up a bus service.
And there's no way to stop them.
And there is no way to actually stop them because you have this trade agreement to provide competitiveness in your economy, and you have the trading of those services.
Okay. But one can argue that the Federation from, can't really remember the dates right now, but the Caribbean Federation movement was a reality at one point.
The Federation was a political union they were trying at that time, and it fell apart because one from 10 left out. The bigger boys didn't think they can carry their little sisters. And then you had the agony of the little age struggling for identity, and out of that came the associate statehood. And then eventually all became independent countries, and now the umbrella body of the OECS became a reality, where we have the currency. Everybody now is not
the Caribbean.
It's the whole Caribbean.
Right.
It's not something that was just engineered. Like this is a progress, general progress over the time. That is why the Economic Union has rolled out under the Treaty of Bastille, and under that treaty has rolled out the House of Assembly, the OECS Assembly, which I have the honor and privilege to chair as Speaker. And we deal with the economic agreements that will come out of the authority, that will come the Secretariat to discuss that, dealing with the maritime areas, the maritime boundaries, what's going to happen with your shipping and your fishing and all of this. So this is now a reality. It's not something where politicians sat in the House of Assembly and dreamt up and talked to each other. Because most of the times when I ask people, did you hear parliamentary debates? Me, I don't have time, I don't listen. You have to pay attention, because a lot of things are happening in your country which will have an impact on your ability to to access and be part of this new economic order.
All right. Okay. So that brings me down to this next question. What is the mission? What is the mission statement for SVGCSI?
Well, it's simply stated, I'll just read it. To nurture, promote, and advocate the continuous development of a cooperative services sector through formulating clear-cut strategies and standards that result in a more sustainable services industry that is ready for a global competition or the global market. Again, just to reiterate, competition is coming our way. There's no way you could stop it. It's like a freight train. How do you prepare your economy to deal with that level of influx of competition from outside? We know that the skill set may not be there, so we have to come up with ways how to train our people. Professionalism is really not there, right? Because we haven't been that exposed to that much type of volume of business. So how do we train our young ones? The persons who are not certified, how do we get them certified? Because you have, for instance, carpenters, masons, electricians who have been doing this work for years, but they don't have a piece of paper to say, you know what, I'm competent of doing what it is that I'm doing. So as Ms. Batiste mentioned, part of our mandate is to help this whole certification process. As you move people freely, it's not that simple just to move a carpenter from St. Vincent to Trinidad. But when he gets to Trinidad, he must show that he's competent, right? To be able to get competitive wages also. So we, as the CSI, the SVGCSI, is just to aid these things to come into being. We just the umbrella. We don't make it. For instance, I sit on the Skills Sector Development Agency or the National Training Agency, and we deal with QBCs and CVQs, right? Just to make sure that basically nobody's left behind, right? We work with the technical colleges, with the high schools to make sure that throughout the levels, whether it's a level 1 up to a level 4 or 5, right, that people are properly certified, right? Because there might be some gaps. For instance, somebody may be well at or excellent at their trade, but they have some literacy issues. You have to make sure that you fill those gaps, right? But by assessing those people, you'll be able to know where, right? But at the least, they'll have some kind of certificate to say that they're competent in something. The other thing is, as far as professionals and protecting our economy, for instance, I sit also on the Architect Council. Our job is to make sure that everybody who says that they're architect in St. Vincent, whether coming in from outside or live within, they are certified to be an architect. And that's not just trying to isolate or alienate certain people, but you as a customer, you as a person hiring that professional, you need to know that the service that they're giving you is proficient, right? That your building is not going to fall apart, right? That is sound, and that's why you need to know if you're working with an engineer that they're competent in what they're doing. So more so with doctors.
All the doctors are well regulated. You have to be registered and you're well regulated.
People try to protect you after your architect or whoever has tried to swindle you. You got to make sure that they're competent.
Yes, it's also because competency will help to build competitiveness. For example, you would years and years and years ago, people would say, "I'm going to a certain island because I can get a better type of professional in that island than you would get in another island." Now the playing field is beginning to be getting really level because you have now a huge bank of services. Trinidad, they called about 600 people to the bar the other day. 600. You're talking about a country with almost 2 million people. So you won't expect that every single person will go into a criminal court because there are so many different aspects of the practice of law. Quite a number of them are going into arbitration, some are going into mediation, another set will be doing labor relations, and others will be doing corporate law, others would be what you call corporate counsel for the big firms, and Trinidad have several huge firms because with the industrial base, it lends itself to a lot of specialization in the practice of law, as well as the practice of medicine, as well as the practice of accountancy. So that you have different levels of persons providing. You have people who will go into forensic auditing, different specialties in that particular profession, so that you're not going to say you're going to look for one of the top 10, and we know sometimes the top 10 usually will have their own difficulties, which has been exposed already several times. So that you now will have to have these different departments, and you have started to get your own set, a whole cadre of young professionals who are filling those posts. Similarly here in St. Vincent, you would notice that the ICT is picking up. It's one of the sectors that Invest SVG is a member of the CSI. They are there. Invest SVG, the Chamber of Commerce, the Ministry of Trade. Those are three that are provided for on the board of directors of the CSI. So they can help us to market the type of services available. And in Invest SVG's portfolio, you hear them speak about trading services and the creative industries. They speak about the ICT. They speak about the financial services sector, how to help that financial services sector to grow and to market what sort of services we have available. And in that sector, you need persons who are proficient as compliance officers because of the new regime that is going to be unfolding shortly. It has started already in one sector that I'm very familiar with, which is the credit union sector. You have to have a number of persons trained in the compliance division. Then you also have the banking sector that's changing rapidly. You would notice for the international business companies, you need a lot of financial analysts. You need people who know about trading on the stock exchange. We have a regional stock exchange, and this kind of investment services that are provided for by a certain firm that is here. We need other persons trained in that sector as well. So there's a whole new market unfolding, but we must be ready to be able to exploit that market. It's very competitive, but we have to be ready to exploit that market, and the CSI is there to guide that process.
Okay, so you have a week of activities coming up. Is that part of it?
Well, again, our main thing is to sensitize. The more we have workshops, like we have a workshop later on this week on proposal or grant writing, there are a lot of monies available to small, medium-sized businesses, right? But if you don't know about it, you cannot apply. But there are so many people applying every year, and the number of grants that are being awarded is so small. So that's another way we try to strengthen our services industries. How do we get to funds that's readily available? Just because we may not write a proposal properly, we won't get the funds. And we know the banking system is pretty challenging. It's not easy for you to just walk up to any of the financial institution here and say, hey, I have a great idea and I want some money to execute my idea. So you have to go through other means to get, and somebody may say, well, £5,000 is not a lot of money, but trust me, for somebody who's just starting right off the ground, trying to, especially in services, you don't need a lot of equipment. It's not like you're coming up with a construction company, right? If you are, say for instance, a graphic designer, you may just need some small equipment in order to be able to start your business, right? So there are a lot of different, so what we aim to do, for the week is to do various workshops to, again, continue our sensitization and to teach people how to make the best of the things that are available, whether it's trade agreements, grants, or whatever. Also, later on, we're going to be launching our website, SVGCSI.org. It's a relaunch. It's up and running now, but we're going to officially launch that. Also, we're having some help from some other CSI in the region. Some executive directors are going to come down to help us as a CSI, seeing that we're so new, because our secretariat just was established February of this year. Mm-hmm. So with the help of the SVG Youth Business and also in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we are still young at what we are doing, because this is the first time since 2008 we actually officially have a secretariat, which is now helping us to be where we are today, moving the ball forward. So that's really what the week not to be specific, that's what the week is really going to be about. It's just sensitizing, showing people where we are so far, and to try to get some revived interest back into the CSI, because at one time that had died. So we have technically lost some credibility. How do we say that we're here, but we feel that we're here this time to stay?
Okay. So this episode will be aired from Tuesday, which will be tomorrow. So I want us to start with the week of activities from tomorrow into Wednesday. We have the grant writing and the public lecture and so forth.
No.
So the first day we'll have the launch of the website with a cocktail venue to be announced. The second day we'll have morning talk show, TV appearance. The third day, morning talk show again. The fourth day, we have the grant writing workshop. And then the fifth day, we have a booth in town, a trade show booth, where the SVGCSI and the SVG Youth Business will be there displaying what services that we offer. And
just to sensitize the general public, the CSI has a board of directors. Mr. Glasgow is the president. Bumani Charles is the vice president. The secretary is Ms. Sherlyn Manuel from the Bar Association. We're now going to be getting a new treasurer, because the treasurer was before from the accounting profession. And also on the committee, representation from the Medical Association, representation from the electricians,
Health
and Wellness. That's the pharmacy. Pharmacists, they're on the executive as well, together with the persons from the Ministry of Trade, the Invest SVG, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. So all these organizations form the leadership of the CSI in St. Vincent. So you can see the number of services that are represented, and we're trying to get the real estate services in, the architects, the accountants, the engineers, other persons in the health and wellness sector, including spa therapists and cosmetologists and so on, so that they can become members, what we call constituent members, who are either corporate members or associate members of the CSI, so that they can really understand the nature of the trade agreements. A lot of people have some idea, but they don't understand how you can access those trade agreements and what is required to access it, and to do it in both ways, where you have a service here, but you can also provide that service elsewhere. Go to St. Lucia, to Dominica, to Antigua, to Trinidad to provide that service, and how the counterpart can do likewise in those countries.
Okay. I think we need to have the media on board with that one.
Yes, the media is represented through Mr. Bernard Joseph, who has a committee that they have put together to develop a strategic public relations plan for the CSI.
And just to add to that, because everybody's just thinking that I'm president, but I represent the Hotel and Tourism Association on the board. So you see, there's a broad cross-section.
It's widely covered.
Exactly.
Widely covered.
Well, we have come to the end of another episode of An Exclusive. It was a pleasure having you in studio, Mr. Glasgow.
It's my pleasure.
And Honorable Benebetis. Thank you for coming. Okay, so you've just seen an exclusive on IKTV, and we've been speaking to Mr. Glasgow, who's the president of SVGCSI, and the Honorable Benebetis, who's a member of the SVG Bar Association, and who is, I believe, on the board?
President of the bar.
President of the bar.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are inviting you to the week of activities. We'll have more information for you coming on IKTV. Stay tuned and enjoy.